Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is accusing the Trump administration of, quote, slow-walking and covering up the release of the Epstein files. In a new interview, Clinton told the BBC the White House must, quote, get the files out, and agreed that everyone asked to testify should do so. Watch.
I think everybody should testify who is asked to testify. I just want it to be fair. I want everybody treated the same way. That's not true for my husband and me, because other witnesses were asked to testify. They gave written statements under oath. We offered that. They want to pull us. Why do they want to pull us into this? To divert attention from President Trump.
So that interview comes as both Clinton and her husband, former President Bill Clinton, are set to appear before the House Oversight Committee at the end of this month. Came after a planned contempt vote was shelved because they agreed, OK, we'll do a private deposition, even as the Clintons want to do it publicly. Bill Clinton, who has featured several times in the Epstein files, was acquainted with Epstein, but says he cut off contact 2 decades ago. Neither Clinton has been accused of any criminal wrongdoing, and both have denied knowledge of Epstein's offenses at the time. Meanwhile, when asked about the Epstein files aboard Air Force One last night, President Trump said it's interesting, in his words, that the Clintons and other Democrats have been pulled in to testify, and that the released files prove he, Trump, has apparently been cleared of any wrongdoing. Watch.
I have nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, a sleazebag, by the way, and I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in, and that's their problem. I don't know. They're going to have to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangement syndrome.
Do you think that she should publicly testify?
You know, I've been totally exonerated on Epstein, and it's really interesting because they've been pulled in. Think of it. They've been pulled in. Clinton and many other Democrats have been pulled in.
I want to bring in here on set with me Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee and, of course, the Homeland Security Committee as well. But we're going to focus on oversight, as we so often do lately, because I'll just leave it to what the president said and have you respond. Do you feel that, based on what you've seen in the files, unredacted and the redacted ones that came out publicly, that the president has been totally exonerated?
I know this will shock your viewers this morning, but Donald Trump is lying when he says he's totally exonerated. It's the opposite. Every time we get more information, either through the Oversight Committee's subpoena or the files that have been released publicly or the redacted files that members of Congress have viewed, Trump's relationship with Epstein appears longer and deeper. I reviewed the redacted file with Epstein's lawyers, recounting the fact that, Donald Trump in 2009 admitted that he never kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. He's continued for decades after that, claiming that he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. So far from the files exonerating him, the files suggest he had a much deeper relationship with Epstein than he wants us to know.
And exonerated is a legal term, right? I guess in the sense that they are not bringing any new charges against people based on what's in these files, that they are not doing new prosecutions, at least not to our knowledge. Sure, I think that is right now a fact. But there are still a lot of questions about the relationship that Trump had, in the same way that there are valid questions to be asked of Bill Clinton about the relationship that he had and why he was appearing in those pictures. Could ask the same of Howard Lutnick. I mean, these are questions that you've heard me ask in the halls of Congress of people like the Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. And so I guess when you see the president saying he's been totally exonerated, when you see the Justice Department come out with that letter to Congress on Saturday saying we're actually done releasing files, right, what is your reaction to that?
My reaction is they're trying to continue the cover-up. I mean, we're 2.5 million files short. They're continuing to hide 2.5 million files, and the files that have been released are over-redacted. And, I spent 90 minutes viewing redactions. It would take months, years for members of Congress to review the hundreds of thousands of redactions. So with this process, we're never going to get to the full truth. And look, one can acknowledge that there isn't evidence that Donald Trump was involved in the crimes of raping young girls. I think it's increasingly difficult to believe, given the length of their relationship, some of the specific facts like Virginia Giuffre being recruited or trafficked from Mar-a-Lago, the strange birthday note and birthday card. Yeah. Increasingly hard to believe that Trump didn't know what Epstein was doing at a bare minimum. It's very hard to believe that.
Is there a way for either the committee or for Congress, and I know we're talking about parallel tracks of this investigation right now, to compel DOJ to keep releasing the 2.5 million files that they say they have, but that they're done releasing?
Well, there's a number of different mechanisms for that, and we've discussed the possibility of civil contempt with the Attorney General before. That's a decision that would require some bipartisan support. One thing that is absolutely true is that the Oversight Committee's subpoena, I think, will extend into the new Congress, or a new subpoena will perhaps be issued, and we will, if Democrats are in charge of the committee in that instance, I think we will push for actual compliance with our subpoena, because they are not in compliance with the Oversight Committee subpoena, which doesn't allow for the kind of redactions that the Epstein Transparency Act allows for.
And so we're going to end up seeing more depositions privately. As of right now, that's what the Clintons are set to do at the end of next week as well. Do you anticipate that that does become public at some point, or that they do a private deposition and then it gets rolled out like we've seen in the past? I mean, what's your prediction?
Well, I certainly want it to be public.
Sure.
Both the deposition, perhaps transcript, and a public hearing. I'd like to see both. I think the Clintons are right to say, let's do this out in the public so the American people can see and judge for themselves what they hear. I think that's the right way to do this. Whether that starts with a deposition with a transcript that's released, or a public hearing, I think remains to be seen, but I want it to be as public as possible.
Yeah, and I think that that's where we were talking about this before we came on. There's a lot of back and forth on what is actually happening when the Clintons have to come and testify. Right. And look, what Comer has working in his favor is that it's pretty typical, as you know, on these committees, to do a private deposition, to release the transcript or the video if the committee decides it's in the public interest, and then to decide, okay, are we going to move into a public forum? I think part of the reason why Hillary Clinton is out there saying we're being treated differently is because the Clintons are being told that they can't do a public hearing, and yet there's Comer out there saying, well, the president has weighed in on this publicly enough. We don't need him to do any kind of a deposition or a conversation with our committee. I mean, again, squaring circles is going to be really hard the deeper down this investigatory road we go. Yeah. And yet, it's partly why I'm glad you're here to sort of forecast what might be coming up ahead. Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw of Virginia, thank you.